do you have scouts out at his high school and watch what kind of offense he's running down there? So hello, welcome to All Four Quarters, your one-stop shop for news, views, and overreactions to all things NFL. This week, key contributors are going down, but it's always next man up. So we got Connor here, and we've got Harry. How are you?
Hello, not too bad.
Eagle-eyed
back after how long has it been?
I was going to say eagle-eyed listeners will remember Harry from earlier seasons of All Four Quarters. He was one of the OGs. It was myself, yourself, David Hartery, and Ian Curran, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe that is correct.
Madness. But yeah, so fortunately
that is correct. Yeah, got that a long time ago.
We are down a Sean this week. He has other matters that he has deemed more important to deal with, which we do not agree with, but we will accept his decision. It is in his contract that he's allowed to take personal days, I suppose. So we are gonna run through the games. Any crack with yourself, Harry? How's all down in Dublin?
It's grand enough. Find myself a lot of time on my hands these days, so might as well pitch in.
So you're going to dive headfirst into the by-election that's upcoming. Harry runs the Irish election projections as well. He's a keen man for the old polling data.
Oh yeah, yeah. Shout out irishelectionprojections.com for the overlap audience of two people. One of them is myself. Yeah, no, we are coming up with some political events. It won't be until a bit later in the year anyway. Probably around May we'll see those scheduled. And for those of you who are based in Ireland who follow politics, they're going to be absolutely wild. But
absolute madness.
We won't bore the rest of you.
I wonder if we're going to start getting Irish Times polls involving people who have not announced yet. Again, that'll be good fun. But yeah, nothing too wild or crazy here. It's the cold is starting to bite in. It's very cold outside today, but we're getting into the Christmas spirit. We're starting to feel the love. It's been a rough week for some people's teams. We will be getting to those games in a bit yet. But as I mentioned at the top, there are a couple of key players getting injured this week, and we'll talk about that too. We'll start at the top with probably kind of a bit of surprise with 3 weeks left in the season. The Jets have fired defensive coordinator Steve Wilks. Now, Wilks is shite, so it isn't that much of a surprise that he's been fired. The timing is a bit weird. 3 weeks before Christmas, unless it's they know that Steve Wilks hates his family and it's kind of an extra salt in the wound to make him free for the holidays to have to spend time with them. But yeah, this is a historically bad defense from the Jets, and it was one of the small positives that they had inherited was a decent defensive roster. Some pieces have changed, obviously. Q has moved over to Dallas, so they're down kind of probably their main pass rusher, albeit he hadn't been massively successful with them. And Sauce Gardner was traded for 2 first-round picks, I believe it was, wasn't it, to the Colts, and he's now out injured. So they have lost some pieces, but this is a defense that is, bottom of the league in many statistics. It has no interceptions this season at all, which is basically a statistical anomaly. The record for the lowest in a season is 2, and that was set in, I think, 2018 by that terrible Niners team when they were just trying to get themselves set up. But it makes sense to get rid of him. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense to get rid of him at this point, because you're not getting a huge jump on finding replacements for him or anything like that, unless there's someone that they've been speaking to that wants to get in the building and do a bit of assessment. But I also don't think they're hiring anyone. I presume it's just an internal promotion to replace him. What do you reckon? I just hope no one gives Steve Wilks another shot, because he's really not been good in any of his spots so far.
No, it's not exactly a track record of success at this point, unfortunately. I do wonder if maybe there's some, or certainly at the professional level. I don't know about his college career, but I do wonder maybe there's some contractual thing that we're not aware of that is the reason the Jets are terminating early. I do agree the timing is odd. It's like the team is at this point basically in full-on tank mode. It doesn't matter what happens now, and they're just trying to get as much value as possible from the picks. They've had an awful season. So why would you fire him with a couple of weeks left?
Yeah,
maybe there's an element of a contract. Maybe there is an element of they do have somebody internal in mind, and they want to give them a few weeks to sort of maybe get a little bit more familiar with stuff before the new season. But all that highly speculative. A very strange thing. And the Jets defense has been weird, because if you look at them statistically, obviously there's things like the interceptions and so on, and their points in terms of scoring defense, they're one of the worst in the league. They're actually decent on some metrics,
Hmm.
but it doesn't matter. Like, you can have a reasonably good pass defense. It doesn't matter if you've got like the fourth or fifth worst rush defense in the league. You can have a good third down defense, but that doesn't matter if you're not making other teams go to third down
Yeah.
very often. Like,
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, you sometimes look at those and you can almost think, oh, if it's a counting stat, we look great just because we don't face it too often because we never slow them down that much. But yeah, but yeah,
that's it.
so
If
we'll
you're
see.
getting to third down against the Jets, you're already a sub average
Yeah,
offense.
it's
So
it's not going well for you at that stage. Let's move over and have a look at the injuries. We've had a couple of big ones that we'll just talk about. So, Kansas City quarterback Patrick Mahomes at the tail end of the game has torn his ACL, and it turns out when they went in to have a look at it, his LCL as well. He's obviously gone for the season. The big question is going to be next year. So, you're looking at kind of a 9-month timeline for ACL recoveries. If you go by, you know other NFL quarterbacks that have come back from them, what you'd be looking at on very similar timelines would be mid-September kind of ish would be when you'd be looking if it was quick, if there's any setbacks, obviously that would be pushed further back. Obviously this will have big impact on the 2026 Kansas City Chiefs. The surgery was successful and he started his rehab already, but it's that kind of thing of uh, he costs a lot of money against the cap. You can't really bring anyone in too major to cover the spot because of just a combination of size of a contract to bring in a good quarterback to hold over in the interim, but also it's not the most attractive landing spot for anyone because realistically you've got no route to starting as long as he's healthy. So that's a little bit difficult. There's wider questions happening in the organization with how that offense is structured, a lot of the coaching decisions that were being made there, and some personnel stuff. So we'll kind of have to see what the Chiefs look at over the offseason for how they want to approach next year, whether they want to approach it as an attack year and Mahomes will be back and starting and everything is fine and dandy, or whether other decisions have to be made. But he's also not the only one with an ACL injury. Green Bay edge rusher Micah Parsons tore his ACL as well, and this was in a non-contact injury. He just kind of came up on a play and was limping. Similar timeline to Mahomes. Obviously, 9 months of being back kind of early next season. This is going to have much more impact on this season on Green Bay than it will on Kansas City because Parsons was, growing into the role there, was kind of the last couple of weeks in particular playing kind of an all pro level. He had started converting all those pressures into sacks and so on. So it's a big knock on them. Their only positive is wide receiver Christian Watson went down with a shoulder injury mid game, but that's considered not serious and he will be back. So two major kind of all pro slash Hall of Fame level players going to be missing for both these teams. Obviously, Green Bay still in the hunt. Kansas City, as we'll get to in a second, eliminated at this stage from playoffs. And the only other bit of news is that the Commanders are shutting down Jaden Daniels for the last 3 games of the season. Obviously, this makes sense. He was out injured. He re-aggravated the injury whenever he came back in. Um, there's not really much to be gained from having him in at this stage. The only real question is why are they doing this now and why weren't they doing this 2 weeks ago? They weren't really in the hunt for anything. There was no real value to be seen. I get the competitor angle, and he says he wants to be out there if he's able to be out there and so on. And he's a young guy, and you want them to learn, and you don't want to have them miss potential reps where they could build up their skill set. But yeah, they should have just had him shut down. And frankly, we saw last week they can game plan with Mariota. Mariota is not a bad backup to be using. He's found success for them. He won them their game last week against the Giants that we'll be talking about in the dump off. It's silly to be risking injury in a pointless year. I don't really understand the coaches approach to this other than either A, appeasing their superstar quarterback, or B, or that they don't feel safe in their tenure and they reckon that they need to win 6 games to get to next year, and they were just chasing those or whatever. But it just seems like a silly decision to not I pulled him whenever he was still injured and the season was lost and he was re-aggravating stuff. I don't know. I don't like that direction from them. I know it's been a bad year for the Commanders with injuries overall. Terry McLaurin, etc. But I don't think they're looking big picture here, and I think that's a slight concern.
yeah, no, I tend to agree. Like, they should have, once you're eliminated, there's no point, particularly where we know that Daniels was like struggling with injuries this season, had already missed some time and was Clearly wasn't 100% when he sort of came back in. But we see this a lot of the time where, and I think like the competitive drive is a real thing, and we tend to take a step back and view things from sort of a distant angle and think about it sort of mathematically. And well, this is what coaches should be doing. But we know that a lot of the time that isn't the case, that coaches do make irrational decisions, particularly when it comes to player welfare. We know that players make irrational decisions when it comes to their own welfare. Case in point, like look at how much external pressure it took the league to start doing something even semi-serious about concussions, and then how resistant teams and ownership and coaches and players were to some of those measures coming into place, even though they're for their own protection. And I think we sort of see that attitude is still there. Like there is a desire to compete, a desire to like play the game. Like people do it. That playing sports is to a lot of people a vocation at the end of the day. It's something they really want to do and they love doing. So yeah, poor decisions like that get made, and quite often when you sort of dig into them, the reasons aren't entirely rational. And I feel that's probably the case here. That it was like the team wants to give itself the best chance of winning, even though it doesn't matter, because winning is in and of itself the goal. And yeah, that unfortunately has resulted in this. But that's my sort of theory on it at the moment.
Yeah, no, of course, and you see a good bit of that kind of machismo, wanting to play competitor spirit stuff, and I suppose you don't want to stamp that out, but yeah, just as I said, kind of from the organizational perspective and from the big picture, it does seem kind of silly to be risking injury for that. We'll just finally chat about the eliminations and clinching scenarios this week. So eliminated from the AFC at this point, the guys from Foreign Titans, Las Vegas, the Browns, the Jets. We've now got the Bengals, Kansas City, and Miami are now officially eliminated from the playoffs on that side. Great company for the Chiefs to be keeping in there. At least the Bengals have the excuse that their quarterback was gone for most of the season and not just now. NFC side, the Giants, Commanders, New Orleans, Arizona, and Atlanta are all gone, and Minnesota is added into that mix now. They are officially eliminated. The only other bit that is relevant to scenarios is the Commanders and Saints have both in the games that we're going to turn to now in a second, removed themselves from the number one pick because they both won this week. Well done, guys. You've done yourselves proud. And on that cheery note, let's go and look at the games from last week. So first up, Harry, you are a New England Patriots fan. You have been for some time. They were at home against a Buffalo team that they had beaten earlier in the season. They had the chance to clinch the division. There's lots of jokes doing the rounds about them hurriedly, putting away boxes of AFC East championship hats and t-shirts and rolling back the champagne. 35-31. New England had this in their grasp and let it slip.
Yeah, to an extent. I think it's one of those games that when you look at kind of the box score and the flow of the game, it looks that way. But when you actually watched it, there's a bit more to it than that in fairness. And I think the Bills, like, look, when we were up as far as we were up, you have to close the game out. There's no excuses for not winning. But I think there is an underestimation of how well the Bills played in that game because of the way the score went lopsided early on. But that wasn't like we were comprehensively outplaying them. There were things that broke our way. We had, in particular, and when you look at the game as a whole and you look at the pattern of how it went, you're looking at two big Trayvon Henderson runs, essentially, doing a lot of the damage there, that being the third touchdown for the Patriots, and then the one to put the Patriots back ahead at the end. Those are kind of splash plays, and they're great and they're nice to have, but if you look at the game taken in aggregate, New England were actually really struggling to move the ball for a lot of it, particularly after the first quarter. Buffalo's defense played really, really well, and it's kind of been masked because Buffalo are such an inconsistent team at the moment. Their defense has been very, very good this season, particularly against particularly we saw against the pass. I mean, Drake May being held to 155 yards. That's his worst quarterbacking performance of the season by a mile in a lot of ways. I think he was barely above 50% accuracy on his passing. So what you had was basically the Bills. New England struggled to move the ball outside of a couple of splash plays on the early part of the game, and that against a team that has the potential that the Bills have to explode on offense, and they did today, because they tend to, they're a weird team. They're inconsistent on offense as well. We've seen a lot of games where they've kind of stepped up like they did today, and we've also seen a lot of games where they've just been, I don't know what they've been doing, frankly, playing up or down to the level of the opponents to some extent maybe. But when New England, I think, it's a reminder for us, like, we're a very good team. We've made huge strides this season, but we're not quite there yet. And I think with the sort of streak of 1 games that we had, we were getting maybe a little bit cocky, maybe thinking, oh, this is going to be it again, and it's kind of back down to earth. But when you look at what happened, it's like, okay, so the offense, there's still a lot of work to do. The receiving core, we're seeing some talent come through, but it's not quite at the level that it's been. This isn't an elite receiving core. Drake May has been playing very well, but he is still a young quarterback. He can still get exposed. He can still get shut down, and we don't necessarily have the talent around him to do that. Henderson's been a very good running back, but you take away again those two massive plays, and we weren't being able to move the ball very efficiently against it. On the defense, we have one of the best rush defenses in the league. The pass defense is good, but not elite. And again, the problem is if you can't stop the run, and you're now relying on that. If that rush defense isn't able to shut them down, they can pick on the pass defense as well. And we saw that with the Bills. They were kind of able to move the ball both ways. So, credit to them. They played the better game of football at the end of the day. We still should have, once New England had the lead, we still should not have given it up. We should have been able to make more adjustments, should have been able to change the way we were playing the game, control the clock a bit more maybe. But at the end of the day, this was one of the strongest performances we've seen from the Bills this season. A reminder that as much as we make jokes about them being frauds and them losing games that they should win, they are still an extremely dangerous team. They can beat anyone in the league on their day. And they should be a playoff team based on the talent that they have. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, because I believe the Texans hold the tiebreak over them, so the Bills really do need to keep winning. But if they keep playing like this, they're set.
Yeah, and they've got two walkover games really ahead. Like the Browns and the Jets aren't really contests. It's the Eagles game that they've got to be circling and kind of going, well, that's where we need to bring our best to. But yeah, I'm with you. I think the Bills showed I think maybe a level of maturity is maybe the term to give it in this, where what wasn't working for them in the first half, they didn't suddenly just go, well, that's not working, we're just going to stop doing that entirely. They knew that they were going to be able to get there eventually and break down. You kind of see that in the splits in their performances between the two halves, or even just purely 28 of their points came in the second half of this game, and they were able to start to get under the skin, I think, New England a little bit. Like you see that in the penalties that were being called. They had, Patriots had 7 penalties to the 2 of the Bills. I will say this is another one that goes into my docket of referee consistency that I would.
Actually, I didn't want to say anything as a Pats fan. I didn't want to be the Pats fan blaming the refs, but you are right.
Because
you're right.
So the Bills came into this game leading the league in offensive holding, right? And I don't think they had a single offensive hold called against them all game. And that's not a discipline thing. That's a reffing thing that happened in this one. They were getting away with a huge amount in it. And there was other instances as well. I believe was it a replay element or something as well that they kind of the Bills fans are going to point to and say, well, that's why it's it's a makeup for that. And you kind of go, well, no, their success was assisted. Now look, they played an exceptional second half, and their defense really stepped up in the second half, and that's what gets them there. But yeah, this Buffalo team has the talent and definitely the ceiling to go very far this year. It is a slight uphill battle for them. They're going to almost certainly be on the road throughout unless New England choke away from the rest of the season. But yeah, you see it in this, and you see it in last week's game as well. They have that extra gear if they can get into it, so they'd be quite dangerous for anyone. But unfortunate for New England that they couldn't just, have that big monster success. Sweep the guys who have owned your division for 5 years now, 6 years, something like that. And but yeah, look, I still think New England. There's lots of room to grow in them, obviously, but I think this doesn't mean that they couldn't beat the Bills in the playoffs. I don't think. I think the potential is there. It's just they weren't able to adjust in the way the Bills were, and they'll need to know to do that better the next time. Next up, Detroit at the Rams, 34-41. We got an absolute barn burner here. The Rams are in incredible form this year. I had to go back and double check this when I was looking at it, Harry. They were 10 points behind Detroit with 30 seconds left in the first half, and that is the largest deficit that they have faced in more than 2 months. They've not even been 10 points behind in the last 2 months. Absolute madness. And they did a old New England kind of special. They did a quick field goal drive to cut it to 7 by the half, and then they had the ball in the second half and they came out scoring, and they just didn't really look back. They got to a 34-24 lead by the end of the third quarter, and the Lions just didn't have any response. They fell 14 points behind until there was only 2 minutes and 40 left in the game. Goff had a great day. He went 25 of 41 for 338 yards and 3 touchdowns, and only took 1 sack against, but was held up as one of the best defensive fronts in the league in this Rams team. Campbell's play calling, and we've talked about this on previous episodes, it seems to be minimizing the run game a little bit. He definitely doesn't have enough variety in there. They were down to 3.5 yards a carry, and you would expect more in this one. But Campbell loves passing, it would appear, and St. Brown, who went 13 catches for 164 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Williams, who's been the big beneficiary of Campbell taking over play calling, 7 catches, 134 yards and a touchdown. They kind of made up for it. It did feel a bit ominous when Hutchinson intercepted Stafford on the opening drive and returned it 58 yards and all that. But, they played pretty clean from that point onwards. Stafford was 24-38 for 368 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Leaned heavily on Puka Nacua, because who wouldn't if you have someone who's playing like that? 9 catches, 181 yards, and a very bad drop in this one. But, just mental stuff. But they did a better job of keeping it balanced. They got a lot of yardage through the air, but they leaned on the run game for the touchdowns. But Williams had 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. Blake Corum, 71 yards and a touchdown. And both of them were over 5 yards a carry, with Williams over 5 yards and Corum actually over 6 yards a carry. Their defense woke up massively in the second half, having allowed Detroit have their way. So in the first half, they were allowing about 52 yards a drive and allowing nearly 5 points a drive to them. In the second half, less than half the yardage, 19.6 yards, and only allowing 1.6 yards a drive in the second half. That's a huge turnaround. So they definitely were able to make the halftime adjustments that the Lions were not. Kind of leaves me licking my lips for the Seattle game that's coming up this week. Them versus the Rams is tasty, whereas the Lions now, look, this is always going to be an uphill battle. The Rams, I've been saying for a while now, I think might be the most complete team that's knocking around this year. The Lions now need to win out, and they're going to need help. It's not in their control anymore. Now, they've still got a good chance at it. Chicago need to drop games, and Chicago, I think, are going to be underdogs in 2 of the games, and then they get to play them. So it sets up for an interesting scenario. But Detroit, unfortunately, not quite looking like the juggernaut they were beforehand. Their run game not being as dynamic. I don't want to just say it's the loss of the coordinators, but there has been a noticeable change in the production out of the run game since Dan Campbell took over play calling duties, and their win-loss record has also gone down during that period. It's not just a function of the opponents they've played, because they have played some tougher games during that period, but their offensive output is down since Dan Campbell took over play calling, and I think he's going to have a hard look at that. Next up, Harry, we had I suppose the defensive battle, two guys up the top of their divisions. Green Bay traveled to Mile High to take on Denver and ended up 26-34. I know you are a dyed-in-the-wool believer.
I am indeed. Always believing. An incredible game from him as well. Really clean, over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, probably his best performance of the season, if not one of the top 2. His development as a quarterback, I think, has really been one of the stories of the NFL this season, and you've got to credit the coaching staff for putting him in a position and trusting him for somebody who was a lot of questions when he was drafted, as whether or not this guy was actually going to be at the requisite level to succeed in the NFL in the long term. I think he's pretty definitively answered those at this point. He's proving himself to be this season one of the better quarterbacks in the league. A phenomenal performance from him that really made the difference in this game. That gap, he outplayed Jordan Love, and that's a really, really important. That ultimately was the most important thing. Interesting situation for the Packers there was they didn't have a lot of success in the run game, right? There was one long touchdown from Josh Jacobs. If you take that away, I think they were at something like 3 yards per carry. And so the game had to fall to Jordan Love. And, on the road against a very good defense, he came up short. We know that Love is not yet an elite quarterback. He may be at some point in the future. He's good, but we saw the limitations of his game when he's forced to throw it 40 times against the top tier defense. That's a problem, and that's not a position you want to put him in. So we saw multiple turnovers. We saw, accuracy issues emerging, shall we say, and that sort of allowed Denver to take over the game. Denver are the top team in the AFC now, I believe, going into the playoffs. The number
Yep.
one seed is potentially something they can they can
And
tie
the
up.
route has gotten easier because they do have the Chiefs on the schedule
Yep,
still to play.
they do indeed. So Denver in a very, very strong position at the moment. I do wonder, like we've seen, like how like is this a team that can go all the way? I don't know, but you look at particularly because like there's still issues around, like RJ Harvey's been good, but like this isn't a tremendous run game. We
No.
have seen other teams expose their defense. Cortland Sutton and Troy Franklin have developed into a really, really good sort of 1-2 punch at receiver, but neither of those players are like they don't have like the super elite option who can take over and dominate games. Like those guys can be shut down. We have seen it happen, and the supporting cast around them. This was a game where Nix was able to exploit that, but he's not always going to be able to. And again, for Green Bay, this is a concern. Again, we've seen limitations that we've seen all season come up for them again, that they are an upper half team, but, is this a team that is this team is in a fight to make the playoffs, and you've lost your best defensive player now coming off the back of this, as you talked about earlier. That's a serious concern. Because this team cannot be relied on to win if it gets into shootout situations. It doesn't necessarily have the firepower and the cast to do that. Again, it's a good team. It's a very, very solid team, but it's going to get beaten by
Mm.
teams that are better than it if they get into a boat race them, which is kind of what happened a little bit today. So I think a lot of concerns coming out of this for Green Bay, to be honest with you. And maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more in the game previews as well.
Yeah, yeah. Because I talked about this going into the game that Green Bay's receiving core doesn't have the 1-1 guy, but they seem to have lots of guys in different roles, and then it becomes very matchup dependent. I actually said I was expecting Golden to be up the top of their receiving chart this time around just because of where he would sit in the depth chart and who might be on him. And that's the thing is, I think that's good if you can fully scheme up what you're going to do. But like Denver's response was very good. They just got Bo Nix moving to try and negate the pass rush, and that worked because no sacks in this game. And yeah, it just kind of the Broncos are very difficult to play at home, and if they can lock up this one seed, everyone's going to have to go to Mile High, and I think that's a huge advantage. So that has to be the big focus now. They're 7-0 at home. Now look, they've only lost two games this year, and one of them to the fucking Giants, if I remember. But like, it's actually come back round fully to it being a real home field advantage. So we kind of want to just make sure that if they can to get that locked in, because I'm with you. I don't think they're the best of the best, but it's a weird year. Like there's space for these teams to do incredibly well, and they're doing the job. It's just a problem that their fans and their coach are all pricks. Like that's the downside.
Fair.
It couldn't have happened to a worse bunch of people. Next up, we'll go back to the AFC West. The Chargers came into Kansas City 16-13, and they put the coffin nail in the Chiefs' playoff hopes for this year. Sad end to the season in a game that was eminently winnable for Kansas City. They opened strong and then went to sleep a bit, and that's been par for the course the last couple of weeks. Kansas City play calling is to blame again. Like Andy Reid, who's always held up as being incredibly inventive and looking at new ways of doing things, there are literally repeated play calls from the exact same looks from a week or two ago turning up here. There are defenders in gaps knowing exactly where things are going. The angles they're taking on the run game don't work at all. So like the fault of the loss here is going to be on the play calling on the Kansas City offensive side. But I will say very dirty play from LA Chargers not getting called allowed it to just keep escalating in this game. And that escalated to the point of Jefferson was ejected from the game. He had a big hit on Tyquan Thornton, and it was horrendous. It was proper headhunting, but like he got ejected for that. That was like the fourth or fifth instance of like cautionable, flaggable, ejectable style levels of play. Like James's hit on Moore on the first drive that knocked him out. Like I don't think it even got a flag, which was nuts. Multiple PIs and so on. And I'm all for hard hitting, and I think there's good examples of this from that side. Like Derwin James's hit on Rashee Rice was a great example of this. That was a big hard hit. It was completely clean. It was fantastic, and I have no problem with that. But it did seem that the plan coming into this game was they're a bit threadbare in certain spots. Try and knock some guys out. It was not what you really want to see from a team that you'd hope more of, but I suppose Harbaugh does have a little bit of history in this as well. Mahomes went 16 of 28 for 189 yards and interception, so not very good through the air. There was a trudging run game. They averaged 2.3 yards a carry. So like the offense just wasn't at the races at all. They relied on the defense to stay in it, and the defense did an excellent job. 4 sacks, 6 tackles for a loss, 12 QB hits, and so on. But even though they did well, it wasn't enough. Minshew ended up throwing the game-sealing pick after Mahomes' injury. The Chargers on the other side were also lackluster. Herbert, 19 of 29 for 210 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. They also struggled to get their ground game going, held at 3.2 yards a carry, and the interceptions here being the difference. It's a deserved loss for Kansas City and a lost season, and time for some cleaning house and some tough questions. For the Chargers, they looked shaky, but they are this season doing the reverse chargering, which is they are winning games that they probably shouldn't. The division is out of reach for them, but the playoffs are a very strong possibility. They have, they're racked with injuries. Their line isn't doing great. Herbert is still not fully back from that hand surgery and stuff. But there are good pieces on this team. You can see at times that they can really get it going. They didn't so much in this game, but yeah, they're good. But they kind of feel like almost like the Philip Rivers, who we'll be talking about in a second. Don't worry. Era Chargers, where like they're good enough to be there, but they're not good enough to knock out any of the big boys, I don't think. And maybe that's different if the injuries aren't there. Maybe if their line is in place, they're a bit stronger. Herbert can still turn it on. We've seen individual games with it, but yeah, Chargers win. It's a big win for them as a franchise, obviously, beating Kansas City, being the ones who get to knock them out of the playoffs and so on. But I'm still not convinced of them going through into the next stages of this season. Now, Harry, on to the two fun ones that we thought we'd just throw in here a little bit quickly. Indianapolis at Seattle, 16-18. Why are we talking about this? One, I suppose both of these teams are very much in playoff contention, even though Indianapolis don't feel like it. But Philip Rivers is back. Tell us all about Philip's return.
Yeah, I mean, it was about as good as one could hope for a 44-year-old who hasn't played football in 5 years. Look, fair play to him for coming back in and potentially, giving up as a Hall of Fame semi-finalist to do that. That's some serious dedication. And I'm sure you guys talked about it as a completely mad decision, given who else they could potentially have brought in at this point. But yeah, look, Rivers came in and he did what he was asked to do. He managed the game. He still has a quick release, still a clean release, still good pocket presence, ball placement reasonable. His arm strength is gone. He averaged 1.9 air yards per attempt, which is really bad, to be honest with you. But he was clean, and yes, he threw a pick, but it was a desperation heave at the end of the game that was just way offline because, again, you know yourself, when your arm strength is gone and you have to make that up, your accuracy suffers, and it was just, he actually overthrew the receiver. But I think that was just a result of that ball just being put wherever it needed to be. So look, I think he did what he was asked to come in and do, and the defense held up its side. As well. They really, really limited Seattle, and really until that final drive where Rashid Shaheed goes kind of nuts, the Colts could have won this game. It is a matter of one or two completions not being completed or having a few seconds less left on the clock coming into that final drive. They didn't give up any touchdowns. It was entirely bend don't break defense, which is a horrible cliche, but that is what it was. They certainly gave plenty of yards to the Seahawks, but they did not let them convert into touchdowns. They did not let them break off those kind of massive plays that they needed to crack the game open and get into the end zone. So not the most fun game to watch, absolutely, but an interesting one to see nonetheless. Definitely some questions for Seattle coming off the back of this, though, because that's a situation where you have a team that is struggling to move the ball. They actually did a good job of shutting down Jonathan Taylor. He carried the ball, I think, 25 times for about 87 yards, which is well below average for him, because they knew they could focus on him because of the lack of deep threat, and they struggled so much on offense to move the ball. And the Colts defense is good, but is not tremendous. It is not the best defense in the league. So you have to wonder, like, this is a game where Seattle should have been able to plan to make this very, very comfortable. And look, maybe there was an element of that. Maybe there was an element of overconfidence going into it. Maybe there was an element of being like, well, we can just outscore these guys without really needing to take any risks, which ultimately they did, but they were very close to not doing. So questions about the game management for Seattle, absolutely, as well as the ability to break down the Colts defense.
Very much, yeah. No, I would wonder if they did look past this game, and I suppose they also only got confirmation that Rivers was going to be playing like 2 days beforehand. And how does one like do you put on old indie tape? Do you have scouts out at his high school and watch what kind of offense he's running down there? Apparently, he's running the exact same offense as the Colts run, and that's why he's buddy with the head coach, and they had weekly calls where they would discuss installs into this offense, one to NFL players, one to 15-year-olds or whatever, which is absolute madness to me. But yeah, no, I'm surprised now. He impressed me. It was good to see him back, and my God, his press conferences are good fun. Like he knows the right tone to be setting in them anyway. It's nice to have him back and kind of doing good stuff. So it makes Indy a bit more fun anyway, and we'll talk about that in the previews. Finally, we just thought we'd mention Carolina, New Orleans, 17-20. I called it last week. I said both division contenders would shit the bed at the thought of success, and they both did it in the fourth quarter with 2-score leads. Shuck led 2 scoring drives in the last 5 minutes, cap with Nuri's own Charlie Smith hitting the last second 47-yarder to win the game. Carolina's run game was slowed down. Both of the running backs can average 3.2 yards a carry, and Carolina just shut down at the tail end when punt, fumble to end the game. Now, the fumble I think it was kind of more of a, last ditch trying to get the ball to the end zone with no time left thing, but it's just they just weren't able to get any consistency in it. The defense got after them, got 5 sacks for them, but the offense needed to do something in that spot and couldn't. The Saints survived the loss of running back Neal in the middle of the game, with Shuck saying, I can do it. So he ran 32 yards in this game, added to his 272 yards and a touchdown passing. It's nice to see them finally using Shuck completely, in that they had him in the Taysom Hill packages, even though Hill did get 2 rushes in this game, rather than taking him out and putting 34-year-old Taysom Hill in for absolutely no reason. But he did solid play, and an excellent, in particular, fourth quarter in this game from him won the day. Shuck is very much trying to make the case here that New Orleans should consider him for their quarterback duties moving forward, and he's not doing a bad job in showing that, particularly given the supporting cast around him. Carolina are being reported to the fraud squad, but at least the Bucs are at the same time. Now, as we say, all games are important, just some games are less important, and for those games we put them in the dump off. Miami at Pittsburgh, 15-28, a slow first half, and then Pittsburgh pulled away. There was only 3-7 at the half, but then 3-28 in the fourth quarter. Rodgers was efficient, 23-27 for 224 yards and 2 touchdowns, and a very plodding run game that just smothered Miami, who are not beating the allegations about not being able to play in cold weather. They broke from their plan that they've been using successfully for the last couple of weeks of let's just not use Tua, and decided to do 28 passes to 16 runs. They took 4 sacks. They threw an interception. Waller did get 2 garbage time touchdowns, but Miami completely cooled off. Their hopes are dead, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, inexplicably in this playoff hunt, are staring down week 18 with the Ravens as likely the game that will decide the division. Atlanta, Tampa Bay, 29-28, a fourth quarter comeback. Big money Cousins as Bucks wither in primetime. Baker had an interception when they were down by 8, just at pretty much the worst time. He had an okay day, 277 and 2 touchdowns, but they were down by 8. The interception immediately meant that they were only down by 2 because the guys went for 2 and missed it. And then the response when they got the ball back was a 6-play punt drive that gives it back for a Gonzalez 43-yarder to win it at the buzzer. Up 28-14 in the fourth quarter. The cracks started to appear for the Bucks. This was a huge Kyle Pitts game. He had 11 catches, 166 yards and 3 touchdowns, as was pointed out in our group chat during the game. Someone who's never watched the NFL before has turned on this and thinks Kyle Pitts is the greatest tight end to ever play the game. Free agency beckons, and he is responding. Bijan was good in this but contained. He only had a long run of 14. Nice to see Mike Evans back. He had 6 catches for 132 yards, so he's good. He will need to average 243 yards a game to keep his 1,000-yard streak going, so fingers crossed, I suppose. Tennessee at San Francisco, 24-34. 24-37. Score looks closer than it was. This was 31-10 in the fourth quarter. Purdy looked good, 295 yards and 3 touchdowns. CMC is still getting touchdowns, but it's just not explosive anymore. 87 yards and a touchdown. I think he was back to averaging 3.2. Pearsall had a nice game, 96 yards. He was in and out with injuries. He left twice with different injuries in this game. So yeah, like he's good when he's on the field. He's just not on the field that much. Ward looked mid in this game, 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Pollard continued his impressive running of late with over 100 yards, but there was no consistency in this offense. Gunnar Helm was their top receiver at 49 yards and a touchdown. The high point for their defense was Simmons had a strip sack and then on the ensuing drive caught the touchdown. So that's fun. At least it's his second touchdown of his career, and it's nice to let the defensive guys have a bit of fun because fucking nothing else fun is happening in Tennessee. Minnesota, Dallas 34-26. Fade them boys. JJ McCarthy 15-24, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, no sacks. But bizarrely, he cannot physically throw to Justin Jefferson, it would appear. He threw at him 8 times, 2 catches for 22 yards, like fucking bizarre. And the run game was absolutely bleak, but Dallas just couldn't convert anything. They settled for 4 field goals and 2 missed field goals. So 6 field goals on drives, 2 missed. Fucking Aubrey's even given up on them. Pickens disappeared in this game, although there's rumours that Dallas have said that if they can't get a deal done, they'll just tag him, and now he's pissed off, and who knows what that means. CeeDee Lamb went over 100. The run game was working, but the Minnesota defense got the best of them. They just weren't able to. Settling for threes is never going to do. It should do against Minnesota. Minnesota are terrible, but Dallas are just so fucking crazy and fluctuating. It was due to happen. The Jets took on the Jaguars 20-48. If you get a defensive coordinator fired, you probably did okay. Trevor Lawrence has another big game. He's actually showing some consistency. I think this is his 3rd or 4th good game in a row. 20-32, 330 yards, 5 touchdowns, 51 yards rushing, and a rushing touchdown. The rest of the run game was absolutely stuffed. So they just passed to the running backs instead, and they all caught multiple catches in this game. The defense got 3 interceptions and 3 sacks because Brady Cook isn't a starting quality quarterback at all. 22-33, 176 yards, a touchdown and interception, and their defense was abysmal. Jags' next big test is going to be the Broncos. The Jets' big test is looking at themselves in the mirror and not laughing. Washington at the New York Giants, 29-31. The only NFL game in this week with no playoff implications whatsoever. Washington sweep the New York Giants, leaning on legs. Bill went 18 carries for 96 yards and a touchdown. Mariota carried the ball 10 times in this game for 43 yards. Scary Terry is back. That was nice. 69 yards. Nice. And a touchdown. They lost 2 fumbles but were able to survive. It was 22-7 at the half. They just kept them out of touch all game. A very boring game, but workmanlike from Washington, whereas the Giants looked a bit like they were flailing. Baltimore Cincinnati 24-0, one-sided traffic. Cincinnati looked absolutely lost. The Baltimore defense sacked Burrow 3 times. Kyle Van Noy and Aloy Gilman teamed up for a 95-yard pick 6 in the fourth quarter, which was great. Van Noy got the interception and then looked at how far it was and said, I am not fucking running that. Here, you take this. And they scored, and that kind of shut it out. This is Burrow's first shutout ever, I believe. I don't think he even had one when he was, a little tiny, toddler playing football. But yeah, like Baltimore win this, they still look shit. Like they're still not good. Jackson completed 8 passes for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. They just said, here Henry, you take the ball, and he did a pretty good job in it, particularly in the second half. He had 11 carries for 100 yards. Burrow got yardage, but they just kept stalling and looking disinterested. This is a nothing game. Take nothing from this, Baltimore. You're still terrible. Vegas at Philly, 0-31. It's a get-right game for Philly, just playing on easy mode. You could tell it was easy mode. They ran it 47 times and only passed it 18 times. Goddard got 2 touchdowns and the defense completely shuts out Pickett. 4 sacks and interception, no points scored. Lots of holding from the offensive line, but it wasn't called, and really, why bother? Like, if you're a ref in this game, you don't need to be here. Like, this isn't a football game. Las Vegas had 5 drives that were less than 10 yards, 3 of which were negative yardage. Just forfeit the rest of your games and close down your franchise. Arizona at Houston, 20-40. Houston riding into form at just the right time, but Arizona aren't really a test because they don't cause any threat on defense. Stroud looked like, Stroud from that one year when he was good. 22 of 29, 260 yards and 3 touchdowns. And they got great running performance despite Marks' injury. Jordan came into cover and he went 15 carries for 101 yards with a massive 50-yard carry in the middle of that. Defense held up well, apart from they just don't know what to do with Trey McBride. 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. I wouldn't want to be the... it's the Raiders that these guys are playing next? Fucking hell. These guys are going to be on some form coming into the tail end of the year. And finally, Cleveland at Chicago, 3-31. Literally nothing to learn here apart from the Chicago side, apart from they can scheme around a good pass rush. They got they got the quarterback moving. They moved a lot of pieces, got some short routes and stuff like that, so that's fine. They were +3 in turnovers, so the score is not surprising. They've got a good young core here. They're all rounding into form. Luther Burden looked good in this one and so on. On the Browns side, Garrett's up to 21.5 sacks, so he's one away from the record. Shador showcased that he has big playability, but he absolutely lacks the floor that you'd want in a quarterback. He just goes big game hunting. He fucks up some of the basic stuff. He had 3 interceptions and 5 sacks in this game. The run game is completely shut down again. Yeah, like nothing really to take from this at all. With that, we'll go and take a look at the games for next week. Okay, so first up we have Thursday Night Football, Harry. The Rams at the Seattle Seahawks. We've gone for the Rams across the board. This is essentially their division on the line here, presuming that these guys are going to be able to play out. What are you looking for?
Yeah, and look, Seattle are a good team, but the Rams are running so hot at the moment, and we've seen this week. There's no way to me that Seattle win this in a shootout. This is a case where Seattle will need to lean very, very heavily on their defense to try to restrain the Rams, and I just don't think what we've seen in the last few weeks from Seattle indicates that they are going to be able to do that. They've been able to shut down teams, but those have been bad teams, and where they were able to limit good teams, for case the previous game against the Rams, they still ended up losing. So it's difficult to see how they basically right now, just the form the Rams are in, they are a terrifying prospect for anyone to be playing. The Hawks are good. I think they could run it close, and look, we know that early week games can get a little bit weird sometimes, but for me, it's just very difficult to see who can stop this Rams team right now.
Yeah, I think your only hope is that Seattle were looking past last week and focusing on this one, and they have a game plan for it and they're ready to go. But yeah, they're at home, that helps. But the Rams are, like we said, just in incredible form. We have a Saturday game this time around. Philadelphia at Washington. We've gone for Philly across the board. Philadelphia have really been like, we're going to build you up, then we're going to break you down, and then if we have time, we'll build you back up again. They're just getting a bunch of easy games here to kind of slowly slide their way towards the playoffs and see if they're not the frauds that we think they are. That said, they should have absolutely no problem against this Washington team. They are the slowest defense in existence. Marcus Mariota is in. At least he'll be game planning for that, and he can, he can sling the football. They have some pieces back, but this Philly team, like, even you shouldn't fuck this one up. The other Saturday game, Harry, is Green Bay at Chicago, a real tasty one.
Yeah, that should be really, really interesting. I think that's going to be quite a close game. I went back and forth on this, and I think we're split on this, so I think you and me are on the same side of that split. I'm going for Chicago on this one, personally. I think, these two teams are relatively closely matched to me, but I think the things that make the difference right now, A, Chicago being at home, and B, the loss of Micah Parsons is a huge thing for Green Bay, that they will now be the ones having to plan around his absence as opposed to Chicago planning around his presence. Both these are young, exciting teams with deep flaws, but also incredible upside. I think this is going to be a really fun game. And now that I said that, it's going to finish like 14-11, but
Yeah, no, I think it's shaping up nicely, and I said this might be the decider for the division as well. Now there's other things would have to happen, but this would be a big game in that. If Green Bay win this, they've locked up the division essentially. But if Chicago win, then it becomes real spicy. Into the Sunday games, the Chargers are taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Sean's gone for Dallas. We've all gone for the Chargers. Yeah. Dallas are a bit in free fall at the moment. They don't really know what they're doing. The Chargers are solid, but not exactly inspiring. This could either be a great game or a terrible game. I'm really not sure what way it's going to go, to be honest. Like, the only thing is Dallas are now 6-7-1, and their pursuit of the perfectly balanced season is what we've been talking about. So maybe they need to go to 7-7-1 so they don't put pressure on the last two games. But yeah, look, Chargers in the current form, a little bit healthier again. Dallas's defense is really not up to much, so they should be able to put some points up. And their Dallas offense is in a little bit of disarray. There's some discontent, as I mentioned, around contract stuff. So we'll side with the Chargers in what I'd imagine will be a close one. Minnesota, the Giants next, Harry?
Yeah, so we've all gone from Minnesota across the board on this one. This is two teams who have, for the last little while, are struggling, but right now it looks like the Giants could not give less of a shit while at least the Vikings seem to be trying. So on that basis, yeah,
Yep.
Minnesota. Not much else to say there.
Solid approach. Cincinnati at Miami in a game that no one cares about. Myself and yourself have gone for Cincinnati. The boys have gone for Miami. Yeah, like look, Joe Burrow is meant to be playing, and I think that's probably the deciding factor for me in this one. Miami were fighting hard while they were still in the hunt, but they're now dead. There's a lot of questions around what's going to happen with that organization. Are people going to be there next year? Are coaches going to be there next year? Whereas on the Cincinnati side, you know, they've definitely heard Joe Burrow's comments that sound like he might retire from football, that he wants to have fun. They want to show him that it's enjoyable to play here. Like yeah, they're going to be trying, I think, more than Miami are going to be trying in this game. But this is a dead cat game. Don't bother wasting time on your screen. You'll get some fun highlights, but yeah, there's better games to be watching in this window. Tampa Bay at Carolina, Harry, with the division on the line. One of them
Is the
has to win,
division
right?
is the division on the line in this one?
It is. They are tied at the top of their division at the moment, I believe.
Yeah, but there's multiple games to go, right?
There
So
is, but
the loser could still win the division, which would
uh,
which would be fitting.
as I they can, but this would give them a massive advantage over it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Given
They
how this
play
division
again
has,
in week 18 as well, so they
I
are
see.
so they
Okay,
you
so
could
one of them that
make
will
it
be head to
back.
head, right? Right. No, I was just
Yeah,
thinking because I'm thinking with how this has gone, that it would be very appropriate for the team that wins this game to end up losing the division.
yeah.
This is a division nobody wants to win. It's been painful all season. I've mostly gone for Carolina because I think it's the funniest outcome. Is
Mm.
Carolina winning the division at this point? But honestly, the Bucks are a hot mess at the moment. Um, yes, they have benefited a bit from like the return of Mike Evans, but they've been so all over the place this season. The way they've been playing has just been losing them games they should be winning. Carolina have a much less talented roster, but you can see there's real signs of hope
Mm.
for this team of them starting to develop with some of the pieces in the way that they actually want to be going, that they're trending positively, whereas the Bucks are on the downside. So I'm picking Carolina because it'll be funny, but also I'm picking Carolina because I hope they do it.
Yeah,
But
no, I
honestly, this is a coin flip. Like
I agree, and I think Carolina would be the more deserving winner at this point. So the reason I said this decides the division is they do play each other again, but they have wildly different Week 17 games. So basically, Carolina need to win this game. If they want to get there, because Carolina have the Buccaneers, the Seahawks, the Buccaneers, whereas Tampa Bay have the Panthers, the Dolphins, the Panthers. So I think
it's going to be so funny when the Bucks lose to the Dolphins.
yeah, that'll be a fitting end to this division, I think. Jets at New Orleans next. We got from New Orleans across the board. Yeah, look, Jets are in free fall. They've got an undrafted rookie starting at quarterback. They've just fired the defensive coordinator. All eyes are on next year. They've accumulated picks. New Orleans, they've been playing well. Their defense has been playing pretty good in particular. Shook has been playing up the last couple of weeks and is trying to make the case to be their starter going forward. And he's doing a relatively convincing job of it. So they're at home. The Jets have to travel a bit. The Jets are banged up and just there's no plan there. So we're gonna have to go Carolina. Sorry, you have to go New Orleans in that one. Buffalo take on Cleveland, Harry. We've gone for Buffalo.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, Buffalo across the board here. Look, I mean, what is there to say? Have you seen how the Browns have played recently?
Yeah.
Shadur Sanders is fun, and Miles Garrett is an incredible player, and the team is just complete ass. If
Yep.
Buffalo lose to them, they don't deserve to make the playoffs.
Yeah, the only real thing to be watching in this one is to see if you can get that old sack number ticking up now. So you might tie or beat the record in this one because he's only one sack away. And but Josh Allen likes to hold the ball, so there's a chance. Kansas City at Tennessee up next. Myself and yourself have gone for Tennessee. The boys have gone for Kansas City. This is just a draft seeding game at this stage. Tennessee are, as I said, they've got a terrible roster. Their quarterback's not bad, but they just don't have a lot of stuff around him. They've got some good pieces on defense. Kansas City is going to be starting Gardner Minshew. At least they'll have a week to bet in and they can game plan around that a little bit. But I also think the Chiefs are a team that have played nearly 2 seasons of additional games in playoff games over the last couple of years. I think a lot of the veterans will be kind of easing off here. I don't think the organization would hate it if their draft pick was a little bit better. And like Gardner Minshew is fun, but like it's it's a bit of a different scheme you're going to have to be running for him, and maybe that works, and maybe you bed that in a couple of days. But I'm just going to go with Tennessee to get a win here in this one. But it's an irrelevant game, but I'd be interested to see if Kansas City use this as an opportunity to take. They have a lot of guys who are just outside of the starters who have been floating around in the system for a bit and they haven't tested them out fully, and we might start to see a bit more of that happening here. So that could be good fun. But outside of that, nothing else. Into
Well,
the
I
late.
think there
Yeah.
is there is one thing with that to note, which is I'm genuinely like this season, Kansas City have had, and we may not find this out if what you say happens, but what I would be interested to see is how this team, if they do run with the starters, actually looks without Mahomes, because there have been so many parts of this offense that have been totally dysfunctional all year,
Mm.
that have kind of got a little bit papered over because Mahomes has still been able to win them games. But like the run game has been
Oh,
god
horrendous.
awful. The
Horrendous.
receivers have struggled. The defenses, honestly, parts of the defense have been a complete mess.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I'd actually be very, I would hope that they start starters for at least the first half, just to actually see what that looks like, because I suspect it could be
Oh,
really rough.
I think it will be largely starters. I just think that you might see some more of the depth tight ends and wide receivers mixed in for
Hmm.
experience. But yeah, like I don't think they're going to be full tank mode. But yeah, I think you might see a bit more Jalen Royals, or you might see a bit more stuff like that coming into this one, just to test them out. Into the late window, Jacksonville at Denver. This is a surprisingly important game. This is the last shot the Jags have at the one seed. They'd still need help. They need Denver to lose again. But yeah, so we've got Sean has gone for Jacksonville, he believes. All three of the rest of us believe, and we're going with Denver at home. They've yet to lose at home.
Yeah, well, I think this is it. Denver at home, as you talked about in the game reviews, has just been a terrifying prospect, an incredibly difficult place. Mile High is an incredibly difficult place to go and play. We have seen some strong performances from the Jaguars over the last while, and they've been a very solid team this season. But if you look at who they've been beating on their like run through, you're looking at like the Jets, the Colts, and that's the Colts with an injured quarterback, the Titans, the Cardinals, and then the Chargers also, I believe, with an injured quarterback in that
Hmm.
game. So it's not as if the Jags have been tearing up against like high quality opposition,
No.
and indeed, I think like they have had some good wins, like they beat the Niners, they beat the Texans in one of the games, but overall, like Denver are the better team here and should be winning, particularly at home. The Jags are tough. They're a team that I think they're one of the teams that like you look at them like nobody wants to be playing them, right? Like they're beatable, but nobody wants to be playing them, similar to the Patriots. Um,
Yeah,
so it wouldn't surprise me if they pull it off, but I think they're definitely the underdog here.
I'm intrigued to see. This Jags team hasn't put up less than 25 points in the last 8 games. I would like to see what that looks like. Oh no, sorry, they did against the Rams when they lost. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was about to
So
say,
last 7 games, yeah, their last seven
yeah, that's
games they've put up at least 25 points. I'm kind of intrigued to see if that is them turning a corner against a good defense. That we'll get a vision of that, or is it going to be closer to the Rams are a good defense and they scored 7 points? So it'll be an interesting kind of litmus test of exactly where this Jags team are. So I'm not going to believe in them just yet, but I know some of you out there, particularly you, Aina, are believing. Atlanta at Arizona, myself and Fitz have gone for Atlanta. You and Sean have gone for Arizona. Yeah, like Atlanta are just a chaos agent. We don't know whether they'll be good or bad week to week. They had a good week last week, so almost certainly they'll have a bad week this week. Arizona are like I've said many times, Arizona, you can just copy and paste our assessment from the last 8 weeks. They will have a relatively high percentage completion. Trey McBride will catch one or two touchdowns. The run game will be underwhelming, and they will lose in the fourth quarter. Like that is just what this Arizona Cardinals team are. That said, this Atlanta team can either be, let's put up 45 points and look like world beaters, or, oh yes, we forgot how to football. Here is 5 points. Can we win now? Like we'll see. This is a terrible game, but doesn't have any real implications for anything outside of Arizona desperately want to get rid of their head coach, and Atlanta desperately want to get rid of their head coach. But one of them has to win. So we'll see. Vegas at Houston in what I'm calling the most one-sided game of the week, Harry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, look, Vegas have one of the worst offenses in the league. Houston have one of the best defenses in the league. We've seen what that looks like. We saw an Eagles team that has been really, honestly, looked bad, just run them over, and it would not surprise me to see Houston do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, we've gone
And I think that's all there is to say here.
Houston across the board. Pittsburgh at Detroit. We've gone for Detroit across the board. Both need this game. Detroit need it more than Pittsburgh, as Pittsburgh are a game up and they still play the Ravens at the end of it. Detroit, as I said, need to win out. The quality of Detroit, they lost this week, and it was bad second half adjustments and so on, but that was against, one of, if not the top team in the league. Pittsburgh are not that. Pittsburgh are a Bengals of the 2010s kind of. They'll make it to the playoffs potentially, but they're not going to do any damage there. You got to Detroit are at home. It's a must-have for them. They're gonna absolutely destroy them, I think, in this game. Pittsburgh, like, they can scheme things up well, but their defense is old. Their offense isn't particularly exciting. Like, even with their success recently, it has been, yeah, Rodgers is old and cold. Just let's do lots of really, really, really short passes and hope that works. And I just don't see it holding up against the Detroit team that had like two wide receivers over 160 yards last week. Like, they can put it on. So I don't see Pittsburgh being able to hang with them. Into the Sunday night football, New England taking on Baltimore. Harry, we've gone for New England across the board.
We have, and this is a big game for both teams. Obviously, both of them in one-game races at the top of their divisions now. The Ravens with the Steelers and the Patriots with the Bills. We've gone for Patriots. The Ravens just don't look very good and haven't all season.
Ass.
The Ravens have been.
This is the
thing. The Ravens have been. Yeah. I mean, no, I'd reserve that for certain other teams, but the Ravens have been an enigma, shall we say, this season, because there's no way this team should be this bad, but it is. And we talked, earlier in the pod about certain teams inheriting defenses that have gone to rot. Like, what has happened to the Ravens defense over the last couple of years? Really, really poor. So you would think the Patriots have to do this. However, let's be fair, this Baltimore team, with the ability it has, can sometimes pull things out the bag. More often than not, they haven't this season, but they've certainly, run. Look, they lost the Bills by a point. They've beaten the Bears. They lost a one-score game to the Lions. They are able to put up points. And when they put up points, they can win games. The question is how dysfunctional is the Ravens' offense going to be? Because their defense is, ignore the Bengals game. Their defense is garbage. And the Patriots do have the ability to do this. The Patriots, if they play well, should do this, should win this. But I always think Baltimore are just one of those teams that, it is, when a team is playing so far below the level it should be at, you always got to be careful about them popping off. But the reality is they are playing so far below the level they should be at.
Yeah, like, if I was you guys, I'd just be putting 9 people in the box. Don't allow Henry to move, and then say, go on, Lamar, throw more than 8 passes this week. Because Lamar is obviously carrying an injury. He's not as dynamic as he was. He was never the world's greatest passer, but like, it's worse this year than it has been in a while. Henry's, this is his time of year, but he's not that good. 100%, if New England's defense isn't able to stop him, they'll just ride that out, and that could make it a very tetchy game. But New England should be miles ahead in this one. You just got to be worried about having to travel up to Baltimore on a big stage following an emotional loss, and it's a bit concerning. Finally, Monday Night Football, 49ers taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Sean is backing Old Man Rivers. We're backing San Francisco. The 49ers need this one to keep pace with their division. It's almost certainly gone at this point, but it's still possible. Indianapolis need this to stay in the wild card race, so it's both gotta have them games for both of them. Indianapolis are at home, which will help, but their defense hasn't been phenomenal. It's snuffed out the Seahawks a good bit last week, but we've been talking for weeks about how the Seahawks team is just lacking that killer instinct. They're settling for a lot of field goals. They're having a lot of drives die on them. San Francisco, while not the most exciting team at the moment, they're getting incredibly consistent play out of Brock Purdy. Kittle is playing at a great level. CMC is not who he once was, but is still inexplicably getting at least a touchdown a game and like about 100 yards a game. Thankfully, they're no longer running 50% of their snaps through him, but it's still at around 25-30%, which is crazy. But San Francisco, they're gonna come in here and get it done unless Rivers with another week in the playbook is able to really start dialing it up. Because the 49ers are lacking on defense. They're missing some key people. Injuries have hurt. Some turnover. The roster has hurt. But Salah's got them operating pretty well. So the defense should be able to get after them. And this is a head coach and a coaching staff that will remember Rivers when he played previously. So they will know tendencies. And I also think Salah is the kind of guy who's smart enough to work. Philip Rivers has this weird arm angle thing that he does when he throws. He had it back before, and it's not just an old man Rivers thing. It's a thing he's always had, and it is exploitable. And I would be amazed if we don't have Salah drilling all of the linebackers on exactly how to try and cause issues for his throwing windows. But yeah, look, Indy could come out firing. San Francisco aren't world beaters. I just think that they should be able to take this game anyway.
Do you think Jonathan Taylor gets over or under 40 carries in this game? I think similar to what you were saying about Derrick Henry with the Patriots. The question here is, and I think Sean's pick is very brave. I think even if this happens, I think the Colts need a lot of things to break their way to win. But this is the question: can San Fran shut down Jonathan Taylor? Because if they can, there's no reason that Rivers will be able to move the ball on them. If they can't, that's how Indy can win the game. If they can dominate on the ground,
yeah,
that's how they'll do it.
No, that makes sense. I'm just not sure they will be able to. That's the thing. Because you don't need to, like, realistically, you don't need to play as deep defensively against Rivers as you did against Danny Dimes, which is a weird thing to say, but yeah. So we'll see. Will that wrap up those games? Any plans for the weekend?
For myself?
Yeah.
Other than watching football, you mean?
Yeah, other than watching football, which obviously we'll be doing.
No, it's getting to that time of year, sort of catching up with people. A lot of people back home for the holidays, obviously, so yeah, mostly taking the week to just meet up with friends coming back from England and Canada and wherever, and yeah, kind of take it into the holiday period. Yourself?
Very nice. Very similar here. So can I go on couple of post-work pints Thursday, out for a round of golf on Friday. Then we've got a kind of a family Christmassy thing. We're going down to my sister-in-law's house, as we've got a bunch of the in-laws are up, so we're going to go down there for kind of a Christmas lunchy thing on the Saturday, and then we're having my brother, his wife, and their doggo over to us on the Sunday for a similar job here, because we're going to be doing Christmas in Dublin this year, so we're not going to see them all over that period. So a bit of gift exchanging and a bite to eat and stuff. So it'll be nice and relaxing and ease our way into the full Christmas period next week. So that'll be good fun. But I suppose that'll wrap us up for this week. So it's bye from Harry.
See ya.
Bye from myself. This has been All Four Quarters. Thanks for listening, and we'll chat to you next week.